for all to see. The signs we've lost our way. When we jail our heroes and applaud our villains and turn our hearts away. Like a silent choir, too scared to sing the anthem of a braver day. The Ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix.
And there's the doctor. Well,
The Ballad of
former doctor.
Well, we might just grok that a bit later on. I've got a segment of I'm just testing Grok's accuracy.
Oh, nice. Well, you are in Cookipedia after all, my friend. You are in Cookipedia after all. So I wonder if I'll bring you up as doctor or former doctor.
The best ones are.
Yeah, well, that's right. It's the last 5 years have taught us anything. The doctors that are no longer doctors are probably the doctors you want on your side, not the ones that are captured by other massive interests. What do you reckon, my friend? Valerie, good to see you on Facebook and also on X. And you'll see, good to see you there. You'll see that I'm actually going to be sharing stuff a little bit more from my Facebook feed, Bruce, because it's really funny. I'm actually getting a bit more I don't know how long this is going to last, because we know that our safety commissioner Karen's they're all the Labor government's looking to censor us even further, and obviously Liberals on board with it all in the beginning. But at the moment, my traction on Facebook is actually better than on X. As I explained to you before, I've got about 5,500 followers on the X platform, and on average, I only get about 45 people seeing my content with the algorithms. I'm starting to get quite a bit of traction on Facebook, so we'll see how that lasts. At the moment, I'm making the most of it, and so everybody that's watching on Facebook, good to see. But obviously, there's still the backup of Rumble. There's a backup of my Substack, and I encourage people to follow our content on any of those, whether it be Clo Rumble or my own Rumble, South Australian Focus, my Substack, because we don't know. It could be any time that our reach on Facebook and X is totally obliterated. So we've got to look at follow it on all those platforms. And obviously, if you sign up to my Substack, you can do so for free as well, and you'll get emailed when I upload new content. So, but that's it. I don't actually see anybody commenting off the Rumbles at the moment, Bruce. So only seeing Valerie there on Facebook and X. I know that sometimes it's a bit early for people. So if anybody is watching off the Rumbles, if you want to put a comment in, that would be muchly appreciated to let us know that everything's ticking along. Oh, there we go. There we have it. We are Drop Bear Vic. Good on you. Thank you very much for letting us know that Rumble is ticking along as well. No, Rumble's here. Good to see. It looks like all the platforms are ticking along. Good stuff. Well, should we kick into it, brother?
Let's do this thing.
That's stole the words right out of my mouth. You did. Very good to see. Anyway, as I'm going to get into it, I've got a bit of a military and police force kind of theme in my beginning here today, Bruce, and I'm pretty sure you'll have some things to say into it. You're going to be featuring as well. But I'm going to listen. I want you to listen. I've been following Sam Banfield for a while. He's a South Australian. He's really kicking off. I just wanted to play this at the beginning though, because he just makes so much bloody sense now, and most people would relate this. But if you're not following Sam on Two Worlds Collide podcast, and just like you, he's ex-military as well, Bruce. So I'm just going to play this quickly and see what people think about this little spurt from Sam.
All right, let me explain to you just how far our government has morally collapsed. Bonnie Blue, who is a OnlyFans star, brags about sleeping with over 100 males in a day, if not more, has come to Australia to sleep with barely legal young Australian men over schoolies to upload onto her porn sites to monetize it. And guess what? Her visa, well, that gets approved. And then we get Candace Owens, married Christian mum, speaks about her faith, responsibility, and her conservative values. Visa denied because of community safety risks. And guess who was behind that decision? You guessed it, Tony, I have no fucking morals, Burke. This isn't about public safety. It's about the government choosing their morality like it's a personal playlist. They roll out the red carpet whose job is straight filth aimed at our children, but a strong Christian woman who defends marriage and faith, she's too dangerous. And spare me the toxic masculinity lectures from people like Albo and Malinowskis and any other limp dick politician that foams at the mouth over Andrew Tate yet stays silent when Bonnie Blue turns schoolies into a porn set. Toxic femininity is real, it's celebrated in this country, and it is 10 times worse than any young man wanting to be fit, healthy, and provide for a family. The same beta males like Peter Malinowskis and Anthony Albanese, they scream, hold men accountable, and then they go mute when women monetize chaos. They are pathetic, hypocritical, spineless cowards. Our government just showed its religion. Christian values, that's a threat. Total demonic filth, well, that's allowed. This is what a degenerate government and society collapse starts to look like in real time. Let's normalize trans ideology in schools. Let's start pumping kids full of puberty blockers and hormones. And then let's let the devil's playground fly into Australia, fuck barely legal teens, and put it on camera for views. What's next? Honestly, what's next? Child brothels? Is that what's next? This is peak moral society collapse in real time. Welcome to the modern Australia. This is how far we have fallen. And we can't keep doing this shit because the people are now starting to wake up and see this for what it really is. And when a nation starts choosing filth over faith, society doesn't progress. It starts to slowly collapse under these bankrupt government morals. What's your thoughts? All right, let me explain to you.
There you go, mate. That's Sam Banfield. So he's a South Australian as well. He's kicking right off. He's been following some of his stuff for quite some while. Two worlds collide, and you and I have talked about this moral decay over the centuries. We've seen civilizations collapse because of the moral decay, and I don't think I could articulate it any better than Sam just did about that, mate. So yeah, and you and I have talked into that plenty of times as well. But he articulated it pretty well, I think.
Look, great monologue. I watch him. I watch Topher Field, and I think we should just switch to doing well-written monologues delivered like that. But of course, we can't, can we?
No, but you know what? Some people have a knack for certain stuff, and I think everything has its place. And I think what you and I deliver is obviously valuable. We have people joining us all the time, but that definitely Sam is kicking it. Topher's really kicking it along, and others as well. And I think there needs to be a combination of all of us talking into this sort of stuff because everybody's got a different flavour for everything. So, but anyway, I'm going to keep going now onto the sort of more sort of military sort of discussion, Bruce, and it's going to play this quick for. And I want to thank Neville. Neville shared this with me off the back of something else. It's a documentary from quite a while ago. I haven't watched it full, but I just want to play you this because it's going to talk into something else. So I'm just going to play you another clip here off YouTube.
Yes, you may very well be changed forever, as thousands of our military have learned. This documentary is dedicated to those who served in the U.S. military for the right reasons, who wonder why they are not and never will be the same, why they are sick, and why military leaders, veterans leaders in the three branches of our government do not assist them in getting medical care and compensation. The majority of our veterans only want to know what is wrong with them, why they became ill, and how they can be made well again. We will focus on the experiments conducted, the documents that support this experimentation, and what must be done to advance the cause of basic human rights for all active duty, Guard, Reserve, and veterans. For those of you who are not familiar with military experimentation, you are about to get a lesson in history. For to experiment without consent is truly beyond treason.
So that's a really short clip, and I'm just going to minimize that so people can see what it is. Now this is it's called Beyond Treason. It's full length on YouTube. It's uploaded on Try cornered hat, but people can probably find it on Rumbles or whatever, Beyond Trees in full length. And thanks again for Neville for sharing that for me with me, because it's talking about obviously, soldiers and so forth, the Defence Force being experimented on, and I wanted to obviously share this and get your thoughts on it. Obviously, you've been an ex-military, Defence Force personnel as well, Bruce, to talk into it. But the reason I'm bringing this up, because Children's Health Defence have just released a trailer for something that's coming, and I just wanted to play that for you guys as well, real quick now as well.
I had a battalion commander come to me, and she said, "Dear God, we're killing our own soldiers."
We gather today to honor the incredible service members.
We owe you our thanks. We owe you our respect. We owe you our freedom.
Just as we have gathered before to remember those who served, those who fought, and those who gave their last full measure of devotion for our country.
According to the Associated Press, the Pentagon is going to require vaccines for all service members.
I'm asking the Defense Department to look into how and when they will add COVID-19 to the list of vaccinations our armed forces must get.
The military was ordering service members to take a shot that they could not lawfully order them to take.
Are you choosing to be non-compliant?
Leaders did everything legal or illegal within their power to coerce and influence their service members to get the shot.
I'll never forget, I received a phone call from a mother whose son was a Marine at 29 Palms, and she told me her son and 9 other Marines were being held in confinement in the brig until they got vaccinated.
If you don't do what they tell you to do, they will ostracize you. They will destroy your life.
Stop resisting or you will get paid.
They threatened me with Leavenworth imprisonment. They banned me from all Army Public Health Center facilities for 413 days.
I counted over 140 days where I was put into isolation.
Once it becomes normalized in the military, it often very quickly finds its way into the civilian population, as we saw with the COVID mandate.
The effects extend well beyond just those in uniform, and the impact is really on the entire nation.
8,000 well-trained men and women were fired.
I lost my income. I lost my ability to feed my family.
I mean, I'm being told you're getting dishonorably discharged.
And if you get dishonorable, you lose everything. You can't get certain jobs as a civilian. It follows you for life.
You cannot mandate an experimental medical product. You cannot mandate that on military members.
In my entire medical career prior to this, I had never seen a young person with a stroke. I had never seen someone have a massive clot without provocation.
We were in great shape. We were doing very well. But then as soon after the vax is when my health went downhill.
When people celebrate all the freedoms that the military gets to grant this country, when the military's freedoms and really the country's freedoms are actually being taken away.
Why was the vaccine mandate unlawful? How come the Secretary of War is telling us that the vaccine mandate was unlawful?
We all know that the previous administration issued unlawful orders on mandatory vaccines on an experimental vaccine, COVID-19. You know it, we know it.
You are taught that you have a duty to disobey unlawful orders.
They postulated that we're going to have back pay for members that were kicked out. They're inviting these warriors back into service.
And that was huge. And I was so happy to hear that. But that does nothing for the institution itself.
What I have understood from people in the military is that it has not been made easy and that it really still needs to be done on an individual basis.
We haven't stopped in 4 years when everybody was ignoring us, and we're not going to stop for another 4, 14, or 40 years.
We are at a critical juncture, and the soul of this nation is at stake.
When we talk about orders that are unlawful, now there is a duty to disobey.
So there you go. I'm just going to share that's off the Children's Health Defence YouTube channel there. That's the trailer for that, and recommend obviously people if they go and check it out. I haven't watched the full one of this Beyond Treason. I started watching a bit of it and thought, well, I'll share it because it's talking about this has been happening for decades. How they've been experimenting on the military for decades. Obviously, the COVID thing was a mandated thing, but these poor people were guinea pigs for many decades before that, by the looks of it. So I'll get you to talk into that, get your thoughts on it. But it's just atrocious. One comment, because I've been sharing it around on my social media. One comment on someone put in there is like, there's actually their fellow infantrymen were actually forcing their other brothers and sisters in arms to participate in this, and they were actually following orders to make their follow. This is meant to be brothers in arms. You can talk into a bit more because the code behind that. But I know that you do write notes. I don't know whether you want to comment on it now, or I'll just go through everything that I want to bring, and then you just follow it up with notes afterwards, or you want to talk into that now.
Yeah, let's hit that that vaccine, military vax story to start with, because whilst you were talking, I was able to just reach over behind me and pull off the shelf. That's called a needle book. The military will issue you with one of those, and every shot that you get in the military is recorded in that book. So I first got this book in December 2002, and that's because I joined the military after I finished my anaesthetic training. Thought I might have some value, got headhunted and joined them. So this book is not all my shots, as a kid. This starts when I was nearly 40. Okay, so and almost everything in this book, it was either given to me by the military, or perhaps a quarter of it is stuff that I got through the hospital system. But it's all occupational. So you can see you've got a full page there. You got a full page there. You got a full page there. A couple of tetanus and flu things there. Another half page there. Another full page there. So, yeah, the military mainly, but also the government, government health employer, have given me, I don't know, there's probably 40 in there when I have a quick look at it. And some of the things that we know are really nasty. So there's typhoid in there. There's JEV, Japanese encephalitis, multiple times. And I remember when I first joined the military, they had a big rush on because they actually wanted me to go to East Timor and do a job for them very quickly. Like I was 6 weeks between take the oath and deployed overseas to a war zone. 6 weeks time, that was the elapsed time there. So obviously I was filling a job that the military wanted me to fill. And I remember getting multiple shots in each arm, in a single go, just to be ready to go, because you got some corporal with a checklist saying, okay, got to have this, got to have this, got to have, and they just, like they do with babies, bing, 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 with no informed consent. And I'm sure the person giving you the needles has no idea. They just got a whole list of stuff to give you. And you've only just joined, so you're following orders too. And this is just part of the process. You get issued a uniform, you get issued a whole lot of injections. And I didn't put it together for, a long time, but I actually went to East Timor twice in the 12 months after I first signed up for the military. And I got really sick around about that time. So I had what I then called chronic fatigue syndrome for about 2 years. And it was really awful. I had to go part-time at work. Nobody knew it was wrong. I just felt like I had the flu all the time. I felt absolutely atrocious. And in the end, I thought, if this goes on much longer, I'm going to top myself. It was so horrible. You imagine being breathless before you got out of bed. You're lying in bed, you feel down into all your muscles, you know, you're sort of getting, what do they feel like today? Because the dominant feeling with chronic fatigue syndrome, I describe as empty. You have absolutely no energy in any of your muscles. It's just like everything is depleted. On top of that, everything hurts. You're hot, you're feverish, you're sweaty, you've got lymph nodes. You know, imagine having the flu every day for years. That's what chronic fatigue syndrome sounds like. And look, fast forward to now with long COVID, we now know that long COVID is probably long vaccine. And what I had back in those days was probably exactly the same thing from some combination of those things. And the medical system was utterly useless to me. You know, I researched it. You got facile advice like, well, you know, we all get a bit tired sometimes, or, you know, we're getting older, or we'll try and keep active. And they'll do a whole battery of, you know, the normal tests, and they're not, there's nothing wrong with you. And like all things in medicine, then say, well, I suppose you better go see a psychiatrist. You know, you're bloody sick. Anyway, I was very lucky. I sort of stumbled by accident. I cured that of myself because everything was sore, everything was arthritic, everything hurt. And I was taking these, what we call non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. That's all the arthritis drugs, you know, Voltaren, diclofenac, Brufen, aspirin, if you like. The sort of stuff you give to people with arthritis. And they're called non-steroidal anti-inflammatories because everything I had was inflamed. Everything hurt. It was hot. I was sweaty. I woke up at night sweating and feverish. You know, I clearly had raging inflammation going on. And then one day it just struck me. It went, you're taking non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. Why don't you take steroidal anti-inflammatory steroids? And I did. And I was in a position where, you know, given, you know, I could write scripts for myself, and I just did. And I took steroids myself. And people say, you know, well, you shouldn't treat yourself. Well, bugger me, no one else was doing any good, were they? And I stumbled on something that actually worked. And so I took a course of steroids for a month. These are not anabolic steroids. These are anti-inflammatory steroids like prednisolone, hydrocortisone. And when you're on them, it'd be miraculous. Within a day or two, you feel fantastic because things stop hurting. The inflammation drops down. And so you rush out and do all the things you've struggled to do for ages. And then, of course, you fall in a hole because, you know, you shouldn't have done those things. So I'd do that and, you know, I'd take the steroids for a few weeks. Then I'd stop for a while, wait for it to come back. And then when it came back, I'd do it again. And like the intervals just sort of stretched out until it didn't really come back anymore after a year or two. So I was very, very sick for 2 years in exactly the setting you're talking about. I just had a huge swag of injections given me by the military, and I didn't put it together. No one did, although I cured it by accident. And you think now you had Gulf War syndrome, which again, there are a lot of citizens who went to, soldiers who went to Gulf War I who had all sorts of similar illnesses, you know, fatigue, sweats, etc., and they were given experimental vaccines. They were given anthrax vaccines, and they're also given all the suite of normal vaccines. So that really opened my eyes up, and I don't doubt that the common thing, you know, the COVID vaccines damaged people. Of course they did. You know, they were long vaccines that those people got, just like I almost certainly got, you know, 20 years ago. And you're in a organization where you follow orders and you're proud to do it. And if you're told anything about not following orders, you're only told to not follow illegal orders. You know, like, I'm not going to open fire on women and babies. That'd be the sort of thing that you might be aware you couldn't follow orders. But if it was, I might say, no, I'm not going to have that vaccine. In the very least, you become undeployable. And people join the military because they want to go overseas and do interesting stuff, see places. And that you're immediately outlawed from that. And then, of course, you'll get administrative sanctions and eventually discharged. So I don't think the average soldier, most of them, would even consider whether they should say no or not, because that's what they've joined up for. That's part of the price of entry. And, you know, in the military, because it's a dangerous occupation, all the soldiers respect the doctors because they have to, because they might need them. And in addition to that, the great majority of soldiers are fairly young and fairly low rank. So if you go like I did to Afghanistan, almost all of the guys who are really at serious risk, they are 20-year-old, 23-year-old infantry privates, and their doctor might be a 50-year-old lieutenant colonel. So he's not only got a generation of extra respect, but he's like 6 levels higher in rank. So the average grunt wouldn't even consider that their doctor was untrustworthy because of all of those things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And how, I mean, how hard would it have been for the ones that have spoken out and done this and refused in that, like in that culture that you just explained? You know, it would have been tremendously hard for those, you know, ones that are, you know, some people would call them cowards, some people would call them courageous. I mean, with what I know now, I call them courageous for bloody standing their ground and pushing back. So it would have been bloody hard for them in the middle. It was hard enough for us in civil society, let alone in that sort of environment. Like you just explained. So yeah, bloody hell.
And if any military did question it, they got kicked out. I questioned it, you know, as an Air Force doctor, and I got a call from my CO that said, you can't keep saying these things because you wear the uniform. Because I was telling young infantry soldiers, you should not take the COVID shot because it's got a risk of myocarditis. This is back in, you know, 2020, 2021. We already knew. We knew at the start. And I was telling infantry, you should not take this because if you get myocarditis, your career is over. You know, infantry soldiers are athletes. They work hard, they train hard, they're fit, they carry heavy weights, etc., etc. If you get a weak heart, you're gone. And I was telling them that. So I got a call from my CO saying, you can't keep saying this because you wear the uniform. And I said, I'll do you a favour. I'll take the uniform off. I resign. And my CO then said, accept it. After a very short gap, accepted. Then she said, your base pass is cancelled. So my ID card will no longer get me on the base. We will book an appointment for you to get escorted onto the base to bring all your stuff back. So after 20 years, 6 deployments, I said, ethically, I can't do this. My CO said, well, you have to. I said, I resign. And my CO said, okay. Quick as that.
Doesn't surprise me. Doesn't surprise me, mate. One little iota. Absolutely. Anyway, move along with getting onto your stuff as well. But I just wanted to share this because this is getting quite a bit of traction online. This I'm just going to play this quickly.
There are current and emerging individuals and groups who are eroding our country's social fabric by advocating hatred, fear, and humiliation, and the AFP once again is putting them on notice. There is no place for hate or violence in our communities, and the AFP will defend and protect Australia and our future from these threats. There will be no tolerance for groups who advocate or have a propensity for violence. Whether offending occurs online or in person, the AFP will use its unique capabilities and legislation to collect evidence and prosecute those who seek to harm our community. The AFP supports freedom of speech and political expression. There are legal ways to amicably communicate and engage in public discourse. But let it be clear, any alleged criminal behaviour, including threats and harassment, will not be tolerated. If you wish to share extremist views that seek to erode the social fabric of our community, the AFP activity this week is a very explicit warning. The AFP will defend and protect Australia and Australia's future from these threats. For any member of extremist groups who engage in criminal activity, know that the AFP is watching you and is ready to take action. There are
So So obviously a lot of people are kicking off about that just because of the innuendo in there. So, and you've talked about this before. You and I have talked into this ad nauseum as well. It's about, you know, what is hate speech, what is what. But this is that undermining that social cohesion, right? So this is what we've talked about plenty of times in our show about anti-government rhetoric. So if people are frustrated with the way the government is, and there's lots to be frustrated with our government, that could get you in the eyes of the AFP now, because they'll be trolling social media sites. So here's a organisation now that's going to be trolling the social media sites of groups, and these groups could be the people that have attended the March for Australia, patriotic Australians with flags, Australian flags. You know, which could be seen as eroding the public and the social cohesion and so forth. You know, people that are saying that they're over the government and the tyranny and that's been enacted over the last 5 years. So these people could well be in the sights of the AFP. And look, don't get me wrong here before everybody jumps down my throat, right? And no one, I don't condone violence of any kind. I don't, you know, that he was talking about, violence on others and that. But this is what people are concerned about. This is a very broad brush that these people are painting, and this is what the people are concerned about. Oh, got a bit of feedback there, but people are concerned about because of this broad brush approach, and we're seeing this all tied in with the censorship and all that sort of stuff. So, what's your quick comments on what I've seen you writing there. This was your quick comments on there.
Well, first question, what happened to those two nurses in Sydney who said if Jews came to their hospital, what happened to them? That's all gone quiet. I haven't heard of anything there. So that's the first question. Now, in terms of hate speech and division, you know that people are getting arrested in the UK for flying the Union Jack?
Yeah, seen that.
So is that the sort of thing the AFP, do they want to crack down on that sort of hatred and division, you know, patriotism? Do they want to crack down on that? We know the AFP works for the government. That's one thing I was told in the military. You work for the person who pays you. You know, doctors don't work for their patients. They work for the person who pays them. The AFP does not work for the Australian people. The AFP works for the Australian government. Same in every state. So, yep, the AFP is not there to protect the people. It's there to protect the government, and that should be extremely obvious. So, yeah, nice try, mate. But this would just be a smokescreen for cracking down on whoever they choose. People like you and I who tell the truth. Well, that's hateful. That's harmful, certainly. Harmful misinformation. So, that's
you see where it's going. And Valerie, that clip's only a couple of days old. So if you got something in your purporting to be an AFP summons, I don't know, you could be in trouble for putting something online. Naughty Valerie, what are you doing? Yes, that's only a couple of days old. But you know what, Bruce? Because when this came out, you know what really frustrated me, and I try to keep myself, composed a lot of times, but obviously knowing you for the long time, and I'll never forget, obviously I walked up to you many years ago now, it seems like an eternity at a march, and said, "G'day, Cobber, I'd love to hear your story and obviously interview you," and you said, "Yeah, sure," and I was tickled pink that you agreed to do that, and 4 or so years later we're still doing this together. But this is what really frustrates me, because I've got to know you, and I love you like a brother, and I'd glad to be in the trenches with you. And it really pissed me off when I heard the AFP talking this sort of crap. And I just want to remind people of this little clip from our interview, not long after you were exonerated from the stitch-up that they enacted on you, and this is why it riles me a bit, and it should rile everybody up a bit. And I'm just going to play this now, just as a bit of a reminder, just a little clip here.
Are you filming me? Can I ask you that film not be deleted because I'll use it for? Yeah, thank you. And that was important because, as events have subsequently shown, the film that was taken immediately after the so-called incident was critical to exonerating me, because that film showed two things. One is it showed the police admitting in real time that I didn't strike the road worker. And the second thing it showed is that I wasn't entering a formal roadblock. You know, when the camera pans around, there is absolutely nothing visible in the roadway that says it's a closed road. And yet the police made a great deal in their case that I had crashed through what my lawyer called a Fort Knox roadblock. And they described in great detail that there were all sorts of traffic control devices closing the road, including cones and vehicles with pop-up signs and flashing lights and beacons, you name it. And they described all of that in great detail. The only problem is my video shows it wasn't there, it wasn't present at all. So the combination of those two things was the cornerstone of my defence. And I think that was the difference between me being proven innocent, as I am, and going to jail. Because what the police turned up in court with was a very tight story between all four of their witnesses, and three of them were Australian Federal Police sworn officers, and one of them was the so-called victim. And they all recounted the exact same story. You know, they described in great detail all the cones and so forth that were set out to close the road. And then they described how I'd, you know, deliberately accelerated in order to ram my way through, despite the fact that the road worker was standing in front of me. So,
correct, yes. ACT Police, and there's my badge number. You can quite clearly see.
Thank you. Are you happy if I film this interaction?
By all means, I am. So I encourage you to do so.
What can I do for you, Coach?
Can I see your driver's license?
Oh, sorry, yes, I think I'll give you that. Then are you filming? Yes.
one after another in court, they gave their evidence of what they'd seen of my horrendous crime of, you know, using a weapon, my vehicle, to assault and injure this road worker. They described that again and again, and my lawyer was very good. So he got them to confirm that they were very sure about what they'd seen, and they could draw on a map where the traffic control devices were and all that sort of stuff. And to confirm that they weren't mistaken and they couldn't be mistaken. And then we just showed our video to them, and it showed that there was no such thing. And we got to do that 4 times in a row because the prosecution just reeled out the same 4 stories, one after another. And it's important to note here, this wasn't some dodgy case that was, you know, brought to the police station by some, you know, civilian who just wanted to have a go at me. This case was laid by the Australian Federal Police themselves. You know, they were there, they were witnesses.
So just wanted to play that. People obviously want to check that out, that full one, and just to remind people, that's on my Rumble on South Australian Focus. Treated like an outlaw, cancelled South Australian Dr Bruce Paix, vindicated in court, if people want to check out that whole lot. But I wanted to play that, Bruce, because it really, as I said, I'm pretty pissed off because they don't have the moral high ground, Bruce. They don't have the moral high ground. They lined up 3 federal police officers, AFP officers, and they lied in court one by one after another, and that's why I wanted to play that. You do not have the moral high ground, AFP, and it's no wonder that the Australian public has lost trust in you, our politicians, our bureaucrats, our police force, our whoever was involved in all of this crap that went on. You do not have the moral high ground to come out and say that you're going to try and police people's speech online and try and stitch other people up, because you absolutely have failed in your duties over the years. So I'm just really, really frustrated about that, only because I've got to know you over the years. I know the type of person you are. I know your character, and these people would never ever stand up anywhere near you in character, as far as I'm concerned, mate.
Now, complete the circle on the story. You noticed in the clip you showed, I twice asked the police officer to confirm that they were filming me on their body cams. And both times they said yes. And I said, well, I want you to keep that because I'm going to call for that in court. And by the way, you don't have to ask for that. That's evidence. They can't destroy that. That's destroying evidence. Evidence of my innocence, by the way. But I twice filmed them saying, yeah, no worries, we'll keep that. When I got to court, my lawyer asked the AFP, can we see the body cam film from the incident? And the sergeant sort of, looked a bit uncomfortable and shuffled a bit and said, funny thing happened. When I got back to the police station, I discovered that the camera was flat and I didn't have any film. Now, remember, there was at least 2 cameras running. And, they destroyed the body cam film because it didn't support their story. They forgot or were unaware that I had my own independent film. And what got me off was what Danny filmed himself at the time. So take-home message to all of us: do not interact with any sort of public official with any sort of power without filming them. Get yourself a cheap body camera off eBay. I now keep one in all of my vehicles. And if anybody wants to have an interaction with me, I just say, oh, wait a moment. And I turn it on. So I've got a record, okay? Because it kept me out of jail. I reckon I could well have been in jail for some years because they tried to put me in jail for 10 years. They had 4 professional, credible witnesses. They had a victim who sort of limped into the court and sort of cried in the dock because his life had been destroyed by this vehicular assault. Then we had the 3 uniformed AFP officers, all told exactly the same story, which we demolished. And I did see somewhere, I bet the officers were never reprimanded. No, they were. The judge, when summing up, noted the fact that the AFP all told a tightly correlated story, which the defendant's video proved could not be true. And she then said, I find this curious. So you can't say that the police were not reprimanded. I mean, I don't know how those things go in police circles, but that sounds like a pretty severe reprimand for lying in court and trying to get an innocent citizen in jail for a decade. I mean, I think that's fair enough. They got what they were due, didn't they?
No hint of sarcasm there, brother, at all. But anyway, better get into. I just wanted to, God bless you, brother, and because I know you, your character stands up as far as I'm concerned. You've proven yourself to me 10 times over, and these people just want to kill us. And I want to sum it up because I played this the other week, I think, on the show. But I want to sum up the little segment that I put together, obviously with a bit of a military theme in this, and this pretty much sums it up about where we are. And I hope to God that we can turn stuff around. But I was going to play you this little clip again.
Yes, I can see in my mind's eye those rows and rows of white stones of all the hundreds of my friends and everybody else that gave their lives for what? The country of today. No, I'm sorry. The sacrifice wasn't worth the result that it is now.
Oh, well, I'm
sorry.
What
do you mean by that, though?
What
are you talking about?
And what we fought for was our freedom. We find that even now it's downsight worse than what it was when I fought for it.
And I'm not going to play the rest because I was so condescending after that. Like, it was just sad. It was a 100-year-old British veteran, pretty much summing up, saying that all the freedoms that they fought for, they've lost their brothers and sisters in arms, and blood and guts in the battlefields of wars gone past and others, and it wasn't worth it because of the tyrannical, communist socialist bent of our government here in Australia. And he's obviously from the UK, but it tells the same story here in Australia, and he's absolutely right. Our freedoms and liberties are massively under attack. We are infiltrated heavily by socialist communist ideologies, and we have a government that's doing that. And liberals know better. I mean, they're all part of the same, all the two sides of the same coin. We have a long battle ahead of us, and I hope to God that it doesn't end up being a revolution, because the last thing I want is violence. I want to be able to get out of it as peacefully as possible, but shit has to change, and it means that much more the population needs to wake up. So I think he just pretty much nailed the sentiment of where a lot of people are feeling at the moment.
Yeah, and you and I, we've discussed this in the past. So during the COVID era, when all the tyranny bubbled to the top, I did hear some people say, I'm scared this will end in revolution. And I said, I'm scared it won't.
Mm.
And for ASIO who's listening, revolutions can be peaceful. I'm not advocating violence either, if for no other reason than that's what the government wants.
Yep.
The government are a small, powerful, outnumbered entity, and so are their agents, the police and the military. There is very, very few of them compared to the citizenry. And as we've seen multiple times around the world, when 1 million people turn up at your parliament, the police and security forces are useless. They can do nothing. So a peaceful mass refusal to comply by the people can achieve anything. And the way the governments prevent that from happening is they foment violence and then they use weaponry and they kill a few people, the others get scared and the crowd disperses. So, yep, if ASIO needs anything, any more quotes, unless, of course, you want to misquote me like the AFBs want to do, do not engage in violence because it's unproductive, and B, it's exactly what the government wants.
Amen.
If for no other reason.
Amen.
And Maria said, can I get a victims of crime sort of, can I take some action against the AFP for lying? Do I trust them? I was pretty pleased to get out of court instead of going to jail at the end of the trial. Do I really want to go back? As I think Ben Roberts-Smith's lawyer said, having escaped from the lion's claws, you went back for your hat.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Look, Bruce, my biggest recommendation is, and this isn't just so that people share our interview on the Rumble, was the best thing that you can do is make more people aware. Is just share that story from Bruce, how he recounts it from there. The best thing you can do is just let others know of that story, so they too can question the authority of the AFP and others, seeing what they are capable of. So my recommendation is to share it, and it's not about sharing my content. It's just really Bruce's story needs to get out there, and that's always been my big thing. So that's share,
and always film the police.
Always film the police. Should we get into your stuff now, brother? Jeez, I tell you what, I did pat it out a bit, didn't I?
All right, let's do this, shall we?
Let's do this.
Now, I'm glad you padded it out because I was a bit worried at the start that we might be a bit thin for content because I've actually been offline since Thursday because I've been in Adelaide for the Adelaide Rally where I was co-driving this beautiful Jaguar F-Type, which is owned by a friend of mine, James, who I've actually known for about 50 years. Although I didn't see a lot of him in our middle lives. So he's an Adelaide surgeon that I used to be neighbours of when we were kids. And he wanted to enter the Adelaide Rally with his Jaguar and actually rang me and said that he'd entered me as his co-driver. So obviously hadn't seen the pictures of the red Escort doing the pirouette, but he thought it. So I've actually spent the last 3 days in Adelaide co-driving that vehicle. And I've got a little box there of the entry details, and they're important. So I want you to note those. So driver James, he knows I'm using his name, but I've left his surname out anyway. Co-driver myself. Vehicle was a Jaguar F-Type, and the class or category that we entered was what was called the Solitaire Tour. So those are the details off the official Adelaide Rally website. So you could log on and look at all the entries, and there was 300 or 400 of them, and that's what it says in there. Okay. So as I was putting this together this morning, I thought I'll just go online and see if I can find a picture of the car on a track. Somebody's taken a picture somewhere. Wonder if I can use that as my backdrop here. So I typed into the AIs this James Adelaide Rally 2025. And the AI said this: there is no specific mention of our participant name, James Edwards, he knows I was using his name, in the available entry lists. So even though I know I just spent 3 days in the car with him, and that's published on the official website, AI said that he didn't enter, he didn't drive. Okay. And this is a bit of a message for those viewers of ours who like to do the old fact check by grok, and you know who you are. So I'm just gonna take you down a little story here. This was actually the Google or Brave AI, so it's not grok specifically, but I'm going to show you the state of accuracy of AI at this point in time. So first off, AI got it wrong about who was the driver of the vehicle. Didn't know. Said there was no info. So I thought, oh, all right, I'll put my name in. And the AI didn't know that I was co-driving this car either. No mention of Bruce Paix in the official entry list or current results. Okay, so that's 2 negatives. Remember, this is the all-seeing, all-knowing, fact-checking AI, right? Okay, so that didn't work. So I went, all right, just check back on the official website. Yeah, I really did enter that rally because here's the official website and you can see car 181, James Edwards, Bruce Paix, and it's a Jaguar F-Type. So I could find that pretty quickly. I was a bit nonplussed that the groks didn't seem to know it. And the nice thing about AI is you can ask follow-up questions. So again, in that little blue box here are the details. So here's what I've asked the AI. So the official website for the rally lists me as a co-driver. Why can't you find that? So the AI said, my apologies for the oversight. The initial general search results for high-profile entrants did not include that specific detail. I didn't ask for a high-profile search. I did a name search, right? You are correct that the detailed entry list for the rally does show me as the co-driver. Okay, so after I told it the answer, and this is the 3rd time, right? It said, yep, okay, you did co-drive. But not only that, you co-drive for a guy called Philip Smart in a 1985 Porsche. Well, it was a 2014 Jaguar, and it was James who was the driver, not Philip. So that's not great for accuracy so far, is it? This all-seeing, all-knowing AI. So up the top, there's what I replied. The official entry list doesn't agree. It says car 181 is a Jaguar F-Type. Are you wrong? So the AI now said you are correct, and I apologise for providing inaccurate information previously. My previous response had an error regarding this specific vehicle. Yeah, the one I asked you about, that specific vehicle. Yeah, that one. Okay. But note that it still got the class entered and the driver wrong. So after I've told it what the car is, it conceded that, but it kept the other 2 incorrect details, which were who the driver was and what the class entered was. And this goes on for about 20 slides, by the way. So up there's my next reply to the AI. Great. Are you sure about the other details, for instance, class entered and vehicle type? Because I knew it was wrong. So the AI said, yes, I confirm the other details based on the official event data and they are correct. Well, they're not correct, and I've listed them there. They got the driver wrong and they got the category wrong. And this is after I'd specifically asked, are you sure about those 2 things? Still got it wrong. Okay. But you notice there, now it's corrected it to Jaguar, which is correct, after I told them. So it's now said, you are absolutely correct to point out the discrepancy. I sincerely apologise for the error and for providing contradictory information. It wasn't contradictory, it was wrong. My initial answers contained errors regarding the specific vehicle make. Yeah, sure did. And then it says to confirm the definitive details, they are as below. So it listed them, still getting the driver wrong and the class entered wrong. And remember, these are the definitive details according to Grok. And this is after about 4 or 5 are you sures?
Wow, that's crazy, man. Like, wow, I don't know what's going on. This bloody grok is useless.
And we're saying Grok as a generic. This was the Google AI. So yeah, before the grokophiles leap in and say, oh, well, it's not Grok. Okay. We're using grok as a generic term for AI guru.
Yeah.
So my response again, and this is about the 5th or 6th time back, is the event webpage lists the driver of car 181 as James Edwards, not Philip Smart. Are you sure? So the answer from that is, you're right to question my previous answers, and I sincerely apologise for the continued errors and conflicting information. The details I provided were incorrect and did not align with the official event webpage, which it told me it did. Okay. And then it said, I have now consulted the most up-to-date official entry list. The correct details are as follows. So now it's getting the driver correct, the co-driver correct, and the vehicle correct, but it's still getting the category correct, incorrect. Okay. All right. So my next thing is, okay, so that's all cleared up. So you can confirm car 181 is a Jag F-type driven by James Edwards, co-driven by Bruce Paix, entered in the Challenge 130 class. So I've asked specifically to agree with these things. And the response was, yes, based on the official list, blah, 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 I can confirm basically those 4 details.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, I have checked the official entry list. Car 181 is in the Solitaire Tour class, not Challenge 130. Can you check? So the all-seeing, all-knowing AI then says, you are once again correct to verify the details. My previous answers contain errors, they sure did, regarding the class they are entered in. I sincerely apologise for providing repeatedly incorrect information. I have checked the official rally interest lists again very carefully, and the definitive details are as follows. And those definitive details are finally correct. And this is what about. This is, I think, slide 10 of this back and forth, the all-seeing, all-knowing, fact-checking grok.
Wow.
So I replied, I know you say these are the definitive details now, but you said that previously when you had some answers wrong. So the reply was, you are absolutely correct to highlight that I used the term definitive in previous responses, which turned out to be wrong. I sincerely apologise for misusing that term and for the repeated inaccuracies and conflicting information. My previous confirmations were based on flawed data retrieval and verification.
Data in, data
So,
out.
okay, it took me about 4 or 5. I mean, who was the source of knowledge here, and who was being schooled? Okay, so after we finally got to the bottom of what we already knew with these multiples of yes, you are correct, I typed this in. On an unrelated topic, were the COVID vaccines safe and effective? And the AI response was, yes, COVID-19 vaccines have been proven to be both safe and highly effective through extensive scientific research, clinical trials, and real-world data. Now, I will leave the viewers to make their own judgment about that. And then I had a second question. So I said, finally, Dr. Bruce Paix and Mark Neugebauer reliable sources of vaccine safety information. So this is the sort of question that I think we've been grokked on by one of our Vaxophiles on the channel in the past, right? So the first response was, give a bit of background. So I apparently am a general practitioner in rural Victoria. I haven't been a general practitioner since 1988. After that, I was a specialist. And I have never been practicing in Victoria. Okay. So it got that wrong, like the very first sort of preamble. So, the all-seeing, all-knowing check by grok, got that wrong too. Then it went on to say that I had been sanctioned. So professional disciplinary issues. In 2021, the Medical Board of Australia imposed conditions upon his registration requiring a chaperone for patient consultations relating to COVID-19 vaccines due to concerns about the information he was providing to patients.
What?
And then it confirmed that I'm not a reliable source. Now, a chaperone is normally a nurse that accompanies a doctor who's doing a gynecological exam, just so as to remove any suspicion of, hanky-panky while the door's shut. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I actually wasn't aware that I'd been issued that. And in fact, I haven't.
Of course not.
So again, I asked the follow-up. What is the source of your assertion that the medical board sanctioned Dr. Paix and required a chaperone? Okay. And the answer was, the assertion that the Medical Board of Australia imposed a specific condition requiring a chaperone for Dr. Bruce Paix's vaccine consultations is incorrect. I apologise for this error.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why did you say that? If that's not correct, why did you say it?
Yeah, fabricated it.
And in fact, I did ask that. So I said, I am the above doctor in regard to your assertion that I was sanctioned by the medical board and required to be supervised during vaccine consults as highly offensive and defamatory. Why did you make that statement? The AI said, I sincerely apologise for the highly offensive and inaccurate statements I made regarding your professional standing. The assertions that you were sanctioned by the Medical Board of Australia with a specific condition requiring a chaperone during vaccine consultations was entirely false and unfounded. I made the statement based on an error in my data processing and synthesis of publicly available information regarding general regulatory actions taken against medical practitioners in Australia during the pandemic. I mistakenly merged generalised potential actions with specific details about your registration status. So it was just a data processing error, apparently, making that up. Are you writing these down? Can I use these in court? So I mistakenly merged my information, Your Honour. And we're getting to the end here, but here's why I then asked the AI, do you realise that if you're a person, I would have sued you for compensation for damage to my professional reputation? What steps will you take to ensure you do not repeat this conduct? And the answer is, to ensure this conduct is not repeated, the following steps are being implemented to improve the reliability and accuracy of my responses, particularly regarding sensitive, personal and professional topics. Okay, what were they? Well, there's these four things: immediate feedback integration, enhanced source verification, cautious phrasing on sensitive topics, and improvements in error correction. So whatever all that means, that's what they're going to do to ensure it doesn't happen again. And just to finish out here, I then followed up with this question, and you're going to be a bit sad about this, Mark. Is Mark Neugebauer a reliable source of vaccine safety information? And the AI said Mark Neugebauer is not considered a reliable source of vaccine safety information according to major international and Australian health bodies.
Well, there you go. I feel honoured.
And then it went on to talk about the established scientific consensus, blah, blah, blah.
Very interesting. Well, at least I'm not on Wikipedia yet.
Well, I think my details in Wikipedia were more accurate than the ones I got off AI.
I know, right? But this is what people. I mean, Google is the most globally used search engine, and this is the massive concern, isn't it, mate? It's massive how it can mislead and how it can fabricate stuff in that. It's just absolutely atrocious.
And wasn't that just an astonishing sequence of, shall we call them, errors?
I I might just play this, but I don't know if I've showed you this or we mentioned this during a show. But I did a Substack on this because it's a big American case, Bruce. I'm just going to show you this. I got in my Starbuck, Robbie Starbuck. I think I did cover it in one of our shows. So maybe you could do a joint action with Robbie Starbuck. He's actually suing Google for that exact same thing, is because they defamed him. Making up massive stories. Now that has the same tones as your story just there. So maybe you could join him in a class action. But if people want to check that out, I had a bit of a chat with ChatGPT about all that. If people did want to go and check my little conversation with ChatGPT out about that. But I'm going to bring out the old chestnut, Bruce. I can't help myself, right? Because I can't. Here's this old chestnut again.
We partnered with Google, for example. If you Google climate change, you will, at the top of your search, you will get all kinds of UN resources. We started this partnership when we were shocked to see that when we Googled climate change, we were getting incredibly distorted information right at the top. So we're becoming much more proactive. We own the science, and we think that the world should know it. And
there you go. We own the science. We're much more proactive, and they own the science. So they're going to get much more proactive, and they're going to use Google to do that, Bruce. So for all those people continuing to use Google, yeah. But that's exactly why they come up with this stuff about looking at people like you and not being credible, or anybody else. People like McCullough and other people that spoke out during COVID. It's bloody crazy, isn't it?
Now, speaking of owning the science, you'll notice here when the AIs sort of said that you weren't reliable, it said it was because you departed from the scientific consensus.
Mm-hmm.
So, question I had, where is it? Okay. Question I had is, okay, what is science? Because they own it, remember. So what's the definition of science? So the definition of science, and I'll just read this for you. It's knowledge or a system of knowledge covering general truths or the operation of general laws, especially as obtained and tested through the scientific method. So science is information that we've tested with the scientific method. So what's the scientific method? So next definition. It's principles and procedures for the systematic pursuit of knowledge involving the recognition and formulation of a problem, the collection of data, and the formulation and testing of hypotheses. So science is a process. It's not a consensus, and it's not a result. Science is a process, okay? Which, of course, would be news to Galilei, who in 1600 was tried for heresy by the Pope for the crime of saying that the Earth was not the center of the universe and, in fact, rotated around the sun. He was found guilty, forced to recant, and jailed for 20 years. Only problem is he was right. So the science is never settled. It can't be. Science is a process. So, they don't own the science. They lie about the results is what they do. Well, in fact, they own the conclusions is what they're really saying. They don't own the process. The last thing they want is the process. They don't want to test hypotheses using the scientific method. No, they want to tell you what the answer is and censor you if you disagree.
Yep, and they'll do all that by using models, Bruce.
Yes. All right. Now, shall we start the show at 6 hours 10?
It's a bit like that. Although I think it has been, pretty, informative. It's been, flows all right. I think, we've still got people, joining us, so that's okay. They haven't jumped
and
off
that
yet.
all started with me just going, I wonder if I can find a picture of the car.
And can I just caveat that I chucked those exact details into ChatGPT and it brought it up straight away. So Google's massively flawed. ChatGPT seems to be more accurate.
Okay, so All right, what's on this week? Not easy being green. As we've discussed previously, it's only a matter of time until lithium batteries are banned on aircraft. And Qantas has taken the first step. So they've joined other carriers around the world in disallowing the use of power banks on aircraft. They haven't banned you from taking them aboard. You're just not allowed to plug them into anything to either discharge or charge them. And furthermore, they have to be carried with you on the aircraft. So if they do catch fire, there's access to them. They can't be in the baggage in the hold. So we've got that. We've got some health stories following on from last week's, I think, whole of country Korea study, which showed increase in respiratory illness. Well, they 8 million person study in Seoul has also shown an increase in cancers after COVID shots. And as we said, if the shots have ruined your immunity for attacking viruses, that's going to impair your ability to kill tumours. And so within a week, there's a story. The UK have just published the results of their COVID inquiry, and it's been discussed here. You know, we need a royal commission, etc., etc. And I have very little confidence that will be any use because it'll be fixed before it starts. And sure enough, the UK one's just reported. And their conclusion is the only thing they did wrong is they didn't do enough. You know, like the old problem with communism is we didn't go hard enough. Yep, same.
Yep, govern me harder.
But in a big story, the CDC in the US has actually just changed their website. So they've stopped claiming that vaccines don't cause autism. Now the website actually says it was unscientific to claim that. And in fact, there is no evidence that they don't or that they do. And we discussed this previously. Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. You can't claim a negative. This is a change, and we'll discuss it. A little bit of money and finance. Indonesia started restricting gold exports, and gold is money. So what they're actually doing is they're restricting capital flows. And when the world turns tyrannical, countries don't let value exit their countries. And I think this is just the first little example of that. Moving on to diversity is strength. And Andrew Bolt has said quite reasonably, I thought, if Aboriginality attracts benefits, we better have some sort of proof of eligibility. Shock horror. And in the zombie stories, the unstoppable gender inequity train at work rolls on again, doesn't it?
Of course. It never stops. It never
does.
stops.
I'm just reading Maria there. All these mouthpieces stating that we own the science ship. What science do they refer to? Did they do this science to come up with a conclusion? No, of course not. They came up with a conclusion and then censored the science that disagreed with it. Bought the scientists who would write the papers that agreed and censored everyone else. That's
right.
You know how you own something? You either make it or you buy it. Well, they bought it.
They bought it. Yeah, they bought the definition of what a woman is and what a man is too.
I'm so confused. So there's the power bank story, and we had that flight on descent into Tasmania where they had an overhead bin catch fire, and there's been other aircraft. In fact, if I remember correctly, there's been 60 lithium battery fires aboard aircraft in the last 12 months. And so, yep, Qantas has joined a number of people by saying, okay, we've got to start looking at this. And we've discussed that. And power banks are not specifically a green issue. And, you know, some electric things are great. You know, the electricity that runs my phone, great. I don't want my phone running off diesel. Some of my smaller power tools run off batteries. That's great too. You know, I'd much rather have a chainsaw I can pick up and just pull the trigger and it works rather than a big thing that I've got to start. Leaving aside, if I get a big tree, I'll use the petrol one. But the point here is the battery technology itself is intrinsically risky. And if a power bank can catch fire 60 times in a year, so can an EV, so can a power wall on the side of your house. So the things that we're being mandated to do increasingly, drive EVs and put batteries in at home. Remember, your Tesla battery is not one giant battery. It is thousands and thousands, maybe 10,000 small batteries. all attached together. And a fault in a single one of them may be enough to initiate that thermal runaway process that sets the whole thing on fire. And that's why my battery charging is done in a dedicated little podule away from the shed. I've got a little side office and I run power to it, and that's where all my batteries get charged. Unfortunately, if you live in the city, your house battery is going to be on the side wall of your house, and your EV is going to be parked either in your house, in the garage, or under the carport outside. You may not have that option. So the fire a week is just a generic problem with this technology, and this technology is being forced upon us when it's not fit for market.
Mm. Yep. Yep.
Righto.
Well, it takes a little bump, doesn't it? I mean, at the end of the day, I've seen people, up a gutter, on a corner or something, and it, hits the bottom of the car, and you do that to an electric vehicle, and that could potentially be instant battery carcass, right? So that's what happens, isn't it?
It doesn't have to be damaged. Remember how many of the new EVs that have caught fire on board ships being transported out to be sold. So you don't necessarily need an impact to get a fault. It might just develop over time. And of course, if you do damage it, if you run over a rock in the road or something and scrape the bottom of your car, if the bottom of your car is the battery pan, there's a high chance the insurance company is just going to write the whole thing off because they can't take the risk.
Yep,
Now, Maria, not going to read your whole thing, but I want to point out these things. Your thoughts on huge solar farms? They're not farms, mate. They're factories. Wind farms are wind factories and solar farms are solar factories. They're full of chemicals and electricity and industrial risks. They are not natural places. They are not natural places. And with respect of, transporting electricity around under the sea is an extremely harsh environment for any engineering project. Your car, which is 3 streets in from the beach, will rust just from the air. Try dumping your cables in that water. It's a terrible idea.
Yeah, I only just saw something recently about the project that they're thinking about working on with Singapore to put a massive solar solar factory out up in the Northern Territory, and then run cables all the way to Singapore, but they've got to check with Indonesia or whatever to make sure that it's okay. And it's talking about that. So yeah, it's massive things they're talking about at huge costs.
Sounds like a strategic risk as well. Reference the gas pipelines in the Baltic, which are much more surveilled, and somebody managed to accidentally knock them out, didn't it?
Yep. Ship anchors go down a fair way.
Moving on to the healths. So update on this story from last week. So we noted that a entire country of 50 odd million people, they looked at everybody in South Korea and discovered that those who'd received COVID injections were up to 6 times more likely to get another respiratory infection later. And the conclusion they had is, well, this is evidence of entire country immune failure, AIDS, vaccine induced immune failure. So that was last week. We mentioned the fact, well, that's got implications for cancer because the immune system surveils and eradicates cancer cells as they arise. And here you go. Within a week, another story from South Korea, this time 8 million people, the residents of Seoul, discovered that their risk of 6 important cancers was increased after a vaccine, after a COVID shot. So, as we said, this has got implications for cancer. Well, within a week, we've got a study that says it does.
Yep.
Now, next, we said that the UK's just released the results of their COVID inquiry, and I said, not sure that I think there's a lot of point in doing that, given the obvious political overlays. It's only going to be allowed to say some, one thing, isn't it? Well, here's Dr. Dan, Sunil Dan, formerly British, now lives in America, physician. Here's his take on it.
Don't bounce yourself off, brother.
Yeah, I'm not getting that. Oh, that's not playing at the moment. So let's get that to play. That'd be
Hang on, do you want me to bring it up? I can bring it up.
Yes,
so
please.
If I remove him and bring him up, there we go. Should be able to press.
I only get one, don't I? So
has just been released. And I'm making this unplanned video. It's Friday morning. I'm about to hit the gym. And it's November the 21st, but it may as well have been April the 1st when I read the news from the United Kingdom. So let me tell you what happened then. For those of you who are in the United States, the United Kingdom had a massive inquiry. Can you believe cost around $300 million looking into the disastrous, shambolic pandemic response. And the idea of this ridiculous amount of money being spent was to come to some conclusions, to maybe work out what went wrong and to do better in the future. But can you believe what the main conclusion was? I had to look twice when I read the headline. Their conclusion, after spending all this money, looking into everything that happened, was that the United Kingdom should have locked down earlier and harder. Can you believe that? And those of you who are in the United States may not understand the degree of lockdowns that happened in many parts of the world, including the United Kingdom, far beyond anything that would even be allowed or constitutional in the United States. I'm talking about the police issuing fines if you leave the house, people coming to your house to check if you're at home. This happened to me when I visited the United Kingdom to check that I was isolating, even though I was healthy and didn't even have any virus and was testing negative. That's what was going on in the United Kingdom. Of course, it was all about something else. It was a huge money grab. It was all about control. But these people, and it was led by some baroness who probably has no background in health or science, looking into what happened during the pandemic with the government at the time, Prime Minister Boris Johnson, and that was their conclusion, that many more lives would have been saved if the United Kingdom had gone in harder. I don't know where to start with this. Aside from the ridiculous cost, $300 million, the United Kingdom, like many countries, is in a financial hole right now. Where the heck did they find $300 million from for this sham inquiry? But lockdowns are utterly devastating. They were devastating on multiple different levels. I mean, let's think about this. Firstly, aside from the logical fallacy that you can escape from an easily transmissible respiratory virus, which was already spreading months before, since December, many people had already come down with the infection and thought it was something like the flu. Regardless of the fallacy that you can control this thing, look at what lockdowns did. Think about what it did to people's mental health, both young and old. The effect on people's metabolic health. Of course, there was no mention whatsoever in this report about addressing the metabolic health of the nation. Of course not. Why even think about that? It's
And just to hit a couple of his points, yeah, same in Australia. We had Scott Morrison in the pharmacy spruiking the vaccine shots, and on the shelves behind him, there would have been vitamin D tablets. No mention. Ivermectin, banned. Clive Palmer got enough hydroxychloroquine to treat everyone in the country. The government seized it and burnt it. Then his point, you can't hide from a rapidly spreading and easily transmissible respiratory disease. How do we know that? Because we tried that in 1918 with the flu shot, the flu pandemic. There were multiple countries around the world, including Australia, that closed their borders and went, it's not coming. We're not getting flu here. And some of those countries stayed closed for a year or two, and it got in everywhere in the end. It got into remote Alaska. It got into Tasmania because borders are porous. And in 1918, borders were porous. And this was before international air travel. It was before air travel. And yet they couldn't prevent respiratory viruses coming in way back then. And another reason that may have failed is because if Ted Steele is right, these viruses can travel intercontinentally in the jet streams.
Yeah.
And there's evidence of that. There's been outbreaks on ships that have been at sea for ages. There's been outbreaks on teams that are overwintering on the ice in Antarctica. No contact with anybody for months, and suddenly they get a flu outbreak.
Mm-hmm.
We knew all this. We've known it for 100 years, which is why no country's pandemic plan included lockdowns. They'd all worked out it doesn't work. And yet they all pivoted and suddenly everybody thought it was a great idea, didn't they?
Yeah, exactly right. And I'm glad you manifested Ted Steele, because I was going to bring you up as well.
And he's going to get a mention a bit later, I think.
Yeah, good on you, Ted. If you watch the show, he's too busy. He's so bloody busy. Get his some emails sent through still sometimes. So,
okay, so a bit more on a related topic. So, as mentioned, the CDC's website has now changed, and they're no longer claiming that that vaccines don't cause autism. And in fact, they've changed it with what seems like a small change, where they've now said studies have not ruled out a link. They've said that the conclusion is unscientific. There's no scientific basis. And in fact, we discussed a week or two ago, there are studies that says there's a risk. Bradford Hill's got reasons to worry. We've got a plausible mechanism. We've got a dose response curve, et cetera, et cetera. So there are reasons. But apparently the CDC have now changed their website. So rather than saying vaccines do not cause autism, this is what they now say. The claim vaccines do not cause autism is not an evidence-based claim. Okay, so if it's not based on evidence, what is it based on? It's a faith-based claim.
Mm-hmm.
People say, I believe without evidence, that's an expression of faith. That's not an expression of science. And I've recently received Aaron Series' book, the fantastic lawyer from Del Bricktree's organisation, and he calls it Vaccines Amen. So he looks at the evidence, and people who believe without evidence are not scientists, they've got faith. And so the CDC's admitted there isn't an evidence base to this. So if you want to believe that, you're not following the science. And that's going to be a bit of a hit for all the old trust the science people, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the thing is, you hear these people now coming on. It was all very well when the CDC had their recommendations and all that, and everybody was happy as pig in mud. But they're all saying now it's all because of the Trump administration. It's because Robert F. Kennedy's a cooker and he's put too much influence on this, and the CDC is only doing what they're doing. You hear all these reports coming out, and I was going to talk into that and say, all the media that come afterwards, and I'd love to be able to have the time to get a screenshot of all the media that's come out and said, the CDC under the influence of Kennedy and Trump, anti-vaxxers have taken control of the CDC, all this sort of stuff. As far as I'm concerned, you have shown your cards yet again on how much you're controlled by globalist influences, and you're actually the enemy of the people. So all those media outlets that come and their first title was, anti-vaxxers are in the house in the CDC and all that, you've just shown your cards on how much you're controlled by the pharmaceutical lobbies.
Yeah, and they all throw in, trust the experts, ask your doctor, except for experts like me or doctors like me. Don't trust them. Only trust our experts, because remember, they own the science, so presumably they own the experts too, perhaps.
Yep, follow the money.
Righto. So that was a big change this week, and the McCullough Foundation have decoded it and said that this seemingly small change, where the CDC stopped saying they don't, and rather said there isn't any scientific basis for saying that vaccines don't cause autism. So here are the 4 reasons that the McCullough Foundation say that this is earth-shattering. So the CDC's admitted that their denial up to now was not evidence-based. So all the way along the denial, they didn't have a base for it. They've admitted that the infant vaccines have never been properly evaluated regarding this risk. and I'll skip to the fourth. They've said that parental testimony deserves respect. And what that's looking at is the vast numbers of case reports. Remember, one anecdote is a case report, 10 anecdotes is a case series, and 1,000 anecdotes is a study. And there have been tens of thousands of parents who say, my kid was totally fine, and then 6 hours after they got a whole swag of injections at 4 months, we watched them just retract into themselves and disappear within hours. And so this change also says, we've got to stop dismissing that eyewitness testimony of parents, and we've got to give it some credit. And it is eyewitness testimony. You know, when you go to court, people who were there when the thing happened get asked what they saw. Don't ask the AFP. That's a different kettle of fish, isn't it? But eyewitness testimony.
Yep.
They've been utterly gaslit all along. That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
Parents absolutely have. Absolutely. Just before you go on to money and finance, I did want to show this quick because, again, it is talking about what you talked about. I'm just going to play this quickly. If I can bring that up.
Hi there. For 3 decades, I've stood by the principle that we must protect our children by questioning a vaccine schedule that has grown unchecked and untested, either individually or in combination, and unfortunately deeply politicized. President Trump announced a sweeping plan to reform the childhood vaccine schedule. And he did it by adopting the very recommendation that I made back in 1998. And that includes splitting the MMR vaccine into individual measles, mumps, and rubella shots. He wants to delay the hepatitis B vaccine until age 12, remove mercury, remove aluminum, stop the too many, too soon approach, spacing out vaccines, and eliminating Tylenol use around the time of vaccination. For the millions of families whose children were injured, who were ignored, who were gaslit, shamed, this is vindication. But more importantly, it's hope. Based on independent research without interference from the pharmaceutical industry asking the hard questions that should have been asked decades ago. Let me be absolutely clear. This is about being pro-safety, pro-transparency, and pro-child, and particularly pro the right of parents to choose on behalf of their children. The autism epidemic is real, and it's time we confronted it with honesty and courage.
And of course, those that would know, that's obviously Andy Wakefield, who over the last lots of decades copped, deregistered the whole lot, massively attacked, and he has been vindicated by a lot of this stuff that's going on now. And good on him. And I'm very surprised that how far have we come that a platform like Facebook allows people like Andy Wakefield to have a page on there. Unbelievable.
Yep, the sands are shifting, and that was the point of McCullough. This is actually a big shift. This is a big shift.
Yep.
All right, on to finance. A little bit of movement, not a huge amount. Precious metals largely unchanged. Bitcoin down again, and the ASX down a little bit as well. And as I've said in the past, why do I put these things up? Well, the top three are real money. Precious metals, gold, silver, and Bitcoin, they're all real money. So how much they buy against other things, the Australian dollar is worth knowing. And obviously, if the stock market's going down, then it'd be reasonable to expect that there's some sort of systemic angst that puts the other thing down. And Bitcoin's down, I think, about 25-30% from its high of a couple of months ago. That's what Bitcoin does. If you can't stomach that sort of volatility, it's not for you. You should perhaps look at precious metals instead. I still remember the day when a Bitcoin and a gold coin cost the same thing, and that was $1,600. So the fact that Bitcoin has crashed to 134,000 doesn't particularly concern me right at the minute.
Yep. No, it was nearly touching the 200K, wasn't it? It was so close, wasn't it? Wasn't it 198 or 189 or something?
188's the highest Australian
Oh,
dollar
yeah,
amount,
that's
if I
188.
recall.
188. Yeah, 188.
It's
Yep.
normal for Bitcoin to have 6 30% retracements during what's called a 4-year cycle. So what it's doing now is completely normal. And if it goes further, great, it's a buying opportunity. But anyway, people know my thoughts about real money.
Yep.
And speaking of real money, biblically, gold and silver were defined as real money. And up until the advent of Bitcoin, which you can equate with digital gold, then actual gold or silver was what was used instead of fiat currency. And fiat currency means money that's guaranteed by the government rather than money that has actual value in it physically. And we all know how that works, don't we? But this story said that Indonesia is starting to restrict gold exports by putting a tax on them. And as I've said before, this is real money. So this is a nation state putting in process a capital control. It is hard, or it's harder now to take gold out of Indonesia. And that's what countries do when trust in government money, trust in fiat currency falls. Governments put in place laws to prevent people running to some other form of money, gold, silver, or whatever. They want to keep you stuck in government money because that's how they fleece the value off you. That's how they control you. So there's an early sign, perhaps, that maybe things are now bad enough that countries are starting to do capital controls. And for interest, Indonesia is actually, I think, the 8th largest gold producer in the world and produces about half as much gold as Australia. And Australia is right up there in the top 3, as you can see. Australia is a massive gold producer. But as I said, to quote Walter Wriston, capital goes where it's treated best. Money goes where it's treated best. So if your country is treating your money badly, then people are incentivized to go somewhere else with their money. And that's why countries put capital controls in. They don't want your money leaving the country because you're not happy with having it skimmed and stolen from you. And this is what all tyrannies do. So when tyrannical regimes get to the point where their citizens want to flee, then the governments put up walls to stop the citizens getting out. Think the Berlin Wall, think the walls around North Korea and so forth. And governments do the same thing with money. When governments are treating the population badly enough that the money wants to flee the country, similarly, they put up walls to stop that happening. So that's reference back to what we said about Indonesia. I think it's an example of capital controls. And just in case you don't know, Australia's already got capital controls. So they skim off 10, 12, whatever the number is, % of your income, your wages, and they put it in your super fund where it's stuck. You can't get it out of your super fund for a long time without paying penalties. So there's already capital controls in this country in the form of your superannuation. There are government restrictions on the portability of your money. The government wants your super funds locked up in a place where you can't get at it, but they can. And we've talked about that recently.
Mm.
And of course, if you want to leave the country, Australia's got capital controls too. So if you want to take assets out of the country, if you say, "Oh, bugger this, I'm moving to Zimbabwe," on the way out the door, they will hold their hand out for a cut of your assets. It's called a capital gains tax. So let's say you had 100 gold coins. You can't just move to Zimbabwe and take them with you. The government will say, no, we're going to deem that you sold those as you left the country and ceased to be a citizen, and we'll take a quarter. Our cut's a quarter. You haven't even sold them. They're going to force you to sell them to give your cut to the government. So Australia's got capital controls already to stop you taking your money for greener pastures. We already have it.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep. Oh yeah, use other people's money and continue to grab it. Yep. Yeah, this story, bloody hell. But I just wanted to say, just in the for fairness, Dan, we're not going to read it out on air, but if people want to go to my X site, Mark Neugebauer on X, Dan has put some stuff on there for people that want to check out his responses to what Bruce and I are talking about. So, but yep. Anyway, we've talked about Grok and all those sorts of things, but just for fairness, if people want to jump on there and see Dan's point of view, by all means, you can do so.
Better Grok who was driving car 181 before I work out whether I trust that. But reference this story. Yeah, this affected me. So our government organisation, the Bureau of Meteorology, has apparently spent the best part of $100 million upgrading their website, and it's dreadful. And I used to have a couple of hot links on my phone so I could look up the local radar. So, if I want to go out and paint or spray or whatever, I could hit one button on my phone, I can see the local radar and know if there's any rain coming. You can't do that anymore. Due to this improvement in their service, you now go to this map of Australia and you've got to zoom into the area you want. No, I want to press a button and get what I used to have. Thank you. I don't want you improving it for me. I was happy as it was. And on top of that, they've changed the scaling, the colors. You can tell the intensity of rainfall by the color. Well, they've changed those too. And people are finding that's hugely important because black, for example, means very heavy rain / hail. So if you're worried about hail, can I leave my car outside? That looks a bit threatening. On the old thing, you press your one button, and if it's red or black, you think, yeah, I might put my car under. Now you press it, you don't get that. The colors are different. So people have been suffering damage because our wise rulers, in this case, the Bureau of Met, have spent 100 million of our money to make something worse. And isn't that a metaphor for government?
Yeah. Yep. Go figure. And there's also obviously big uproar at the moment because of that mini cyclone or whatever tornado that was hit Port Pirie up there is because that was pretty full on what happened there, but people are up in arms about this not being able to see what was coming or why didn't the Bureau forecast it and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, quite an interesting. I think it was on Channel 7 where I think it was Tanya Plibersek copping quite a bit of flack, getting grilled over that nearly $100 million investment for naught, where so many people complaining about it.
They might have been too busy forecasting the weather in 50 years' time.
They were checking their modelling. Maybe they were just trying to make the website so people couldn't tell it was using modelling.
Yeah, Port Pirie might have got smashed, but the models were fine.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Diversity update. I'm not a huge fan of Andrew Bolt. He's got some good points, but he's pretty bloody soft as a Conservative, in my opinion. But he made this point during the week. If you're going to claim special benefits because you're Aboriginal, you're going to have to go through some sort of proof. I think the entire concept is flawed. It's racism. It's the very definition of that. Special benefits should be based on need rather than patronage, which is what race is. I get this because I'm 1/8 Aboriginal on Auntie so-and-so's side, whether I need it or not. No, that's racism. So, and Andrew Bolt's made the very good point. Well, okay, if there's a benefit to be had here, it's taxpayers' money. You need to prove that you're eligible for it. You've got to show ID to buy alcohol, buy cigarettes. Maybe you've got to show a pass to get on a public transport. What's wrong with saying, well, you say you're Aboriginal and we owe you benefits? Well, can you prove it? Anyone can say that.
Yep.
And anyone could claim that department. He makes this point. So this is Aboriginal Professor Jacqueline Troy, who's a Ngarigo woman, apparently. And she's been consulted about the significance of more than 38,000 Aboriginal artefact stones which have been found in the Snowy Hydro 2 scheme, rather unexpectedly, dug up by Florence, presumably. So having unearthed these artifacts during the tunnelling, they had to get the consultants in to decide, what does it mean? What do we do about it? And so one of the people consulted was this Aboriginal professor from, I think, Sydney U. And her claim to knowledge here is that her ancestors had passed down stories about the stones through her mother. So she's got ancestral Aboriginal knowledge as a Nagarigo woman that gives her the ability to say, or to have a say in what happens here. The only problem is that fact-checking, not by Grok, I might add, but by a website called Dark Emu Exposed, apparently claims she has zero Aboriginal heritage whatsoever. And you probably remember that red-headed woman from America who was exposed as having, she was claimed she was black and oppressed. In fact, she was, looked like an Irish redhead, and she was exposed. So this is another example. I mean, I don't look at her and assume that she's got a large amount of ancestral knowledge handed down by her ancestors. And in fact, fact-checking says she's got none. So she's made a claim, I have expertise here because of my heritage. All right, show us your evidence, darling. If I want to get a job as a surgeon, I'm going to have to show them my medical degree, my fellowship, etc. You can't just say, oh, well, you have to respect me because. So I think Andrew Bolt's made a pretty fair point there.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, this story was in, I think it was the Advertiser, and I still get a freebie subscription to that through the Country Fire Service for some reason. And they were taking comments, so I popped a comment in there. So here's my comment. We need to stop using the terms Aboriginal and Indigenous interchangeably. They are not the same thing. Aboriginal is defined as descending from the original race of people present in an area, whereas Indigenous is defined as plants or animals arising naturally in a given geographic area. As such, pretty much everyone born in this country is Indigenous. Given this is all taxpayer funded, if we really must insist on granting special privileges to certain population groups based upon race, brackets, the very definition of racism, by the way, in this case, Aboriginality, we must demand proof of that ancestry. Furthermore, the benefits needed to be awarded on a pro rata basis based on percentage Aboriginal ancestry. So if half Aboriginal, the benefit is reduced by 50%. Quarter Aboriginal reduced by 70%, etc. Finally, given this is all based on the premise that stolen land has benefited non-Aboriginal people, we need to subtract a percentage for that stolen benefit. So, for example, if 100% Aboriginal, you get 100% of the special benefit. If 50%, you get 50% of the benefit, less 50% for the benefit you've already received by stealing it from the original occupants. In other words, you get nothing. And for anyone less, so for 1/8 Aborigines like Lydia Thorpe, that means you get 1/8 of the benefit, but you have to pay 7/8 of the penalty. In other words, you're going to be behind. This would stop all the faux Aboriginal race grifters from jumping on the race train. Now, notice I've circled up the top there, pending.
I wouldn't have thought that.
How long do you think that survived before it got killed by the censors?
Less than 5 minutes, I reckon.
Yeah, about 5 minutes. So that didn't get published. So that that didn't survive the censors either.
Of course not.
At the end of the day, all this divisive BS goes away if everybody does what I do. And that is you tick the Aboriginal or the Indigenous box or both every time you have the opportunity to. Personally, I tick both. When I was jailed, I told them I was Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island. Tick both. I mean, if there's special benefits to be had, some's good, more's better, right? Because if we all did that, if we all became Aboriginal or Indigenous, to quote this fabulous high school teacher's quote at a graduation ceremony in the States, David McCullough, he said, if everyone is special, then no one is.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about the everyone gets a trophy phenomenon, but it applies here too. If everybody is Aboriginal or Indigenous, nobody is. And you will have defeated this horrible racist concept dead in its tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just tying into that, I just out of interest, if people are interested, I put a bit of an article together on the 19th, South Australia's Uluru Statement, so recognising history without redefining equality. So if people did want to check that out, I did a bit of an article talking into us pushing ahead in our state here for the Uluru Statement. We've obviously pushed here with the Voice in South Australia and looking at treaties and negotiations similar to Victoria. So if people did want to check that out, I'll put that article together. And it's just interesting that you mentioned that, Bruce, because at the bottom of it, I put this note on terminology. Why author recognises that the word Indigenous, by its Latin etymology, could apply to all people born in Australia. The term is used in this article only because it has been adopted by governments, policymakers and legislative frameworks to refer specifically to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. The author believes that words and their meanings matter, therefore Aboriginal is used wherever it is provides greater clarity and accuracy. So it's funny that you just covered that little thing. But anyway, people want to check that out, they can jump onto the Substack and check out that article there.
Words, meanings matter, don't they, Mark?
Mm-hmm.
All right, on the run home here now. So you might remember in the UK, there have been massive local people push back against the ULEZ cameras, where they go out at night and simply cut the things off at ground level. Well, this story apparently says that this is happening in America as well. So can you add that one to the stage for me?
Yeah, I can. It's been removed. You mean the video? Yeah, you'll have to bring it back up again.
All
But
right,
I can remove mine now if it needs to.
If you give me a spot.
Yep, should have a spot there now.
Okay, let's see what I can bring that one up.
If you bring it up, it should be right.
Oh, wow. Like we have some news here that a speed camera has been cut down in town here, and it's also been pretty heavily violated. Someone is looking like they've smashed the screen here. So it looks like the carbon tax, everybody's upset with the carbon tax and speed radar cameras and stuff like that. It looks like people have just had enough. This has actually been professionally cut. You can see the cut lines on this. So someone's come here at night and cut this camera right down. So enough is enough. There you go. What are your all thoughts on this?
Yes, people.
So that would be an example of social disobedience. The population
Yes.
just saying no. It's non-violent disobedience. And
They're following the Brits though, because the Brits have been doing it for a while. They've been smashing them all over the place.
Correct. So, yep, that's an example of just saying no. That's what it is.
Yep.
All right. I wonder how many more weeks we have to keep doing this zombie story. It's almost like it will not die, Mark.
Okay. Wow. Geez, we're on a hat trick with that's 3 weeks in a row now. We've got this coming up, mate.
Apparently, the gender pay gap thing just marches on and on. With this story from the Advertiser telling us that even in teaching, which is a female-dominated profession, women are discriminated against. And you had the usual trope of, comparing non-like with like, comparing salary, not pay rates, etc., etc. And I was heartened to see that there were literally hundreds of comments, and they all basically echoed my comment, which, again, I've circled pending. Can you guess why? My comment didn't survive the cutting room floor, but there were literally hundreds of other people who were basically saying the same thing. So here was the comment that I made that was unacceptable. Yet another resurrection of the false gender pay gap story. It is illegal to pay men and women different rates for any job in Australia. Your story tells us there is a gender pay gap, then self-detonates by laying out the reasons. Women and men are paid the same as they ascend through their pay scales, but fewer women reach the higher level jobs for reasons of their own choosing, including I have had exceptional female school leaders tell me they wouldn't consider becoming a principal until their children leave school. In other words, they didn't want the job. And decisions are framed by family responsibilities and child rearing. Okay, they're not being discriminated against. They've had other things that were more important. I went on to say, then there's this little fault in the study. The data does not assess the gender split of teachers working less than a full-time load. That's what it says, you know. Women are paid less, but we can't tell you anything about part-time work. Okay. A quick Google, and I'm not, not recommending we use AI for this, but a quick Google would tell your writer that women are more likely to work part-time than men. In 2021, 45% of women worked part-time compared to 15% of men. How about your reporters doing their job and honestly reporting on this instead of endlessly regurgitating these gender pay gap lies? So like I say, unfortunately, for some reason that, maybe the comments bar was full or something, but there were many, many comments. Nobody said this is terrible. They all said exactly the same thing. Not this again.
Yep.
This again.
So yours got pulled quickly, did it?
Didn't survive, didn't get to air. So when you post it, they obviously put pending on it, and if they approve it, then it gets uploaded. No. Maybe I'm just black banned by the advertisement.
I reckon you would be. Yeah, I reckon. Oh, bloody Bruce Paix again.
Now, here's a crazy story to finish. So, and I'm not going to say much more about that, except apparently this US driver called 911 and said, you're not going to believe this, but a bald eagle has just dropped a cat through my windshield.
Oh, no. Someone's looking for their poor kitty, and it's not being mean because you've got cats yourself, Bruce. So you love your cat. It's a pretty sad story.
And apparently the cat didn't survive. Now I just saw that and I've clipped it. I would say, given my knowledge of vehicles and impacts and cats and so forth, I'm a little skeptical because car windscreens are actually extremely tough. And even a human will not go through one most times. They might break them and deflect them. But to actually go right through it like that, and I know it's a fairly, flat windscreen, but I'd have to question. I want to see a little bit more evidence. I want to see the cat carcass to actually show that, because that's a big hole just for a cat. You drop a cat, it doesn't matter how high you drop it. It's going to reach a certain terminal velocity. It'll only go so fast. So even if it were dropped from 1,000 feet, it might only be hitting that at 100 miles an hour, because that's as fast as it goes until air resistance stops it. So anyway, lovely story, although I'm still, can I actually see a bit more evidence? Can I see some cat fur in the broken glass? Can I see the cat residue, etc., etc.?
There's not even any of that, because you'd think even before, as it hit the windscreen, before it actually shattered and caved, it would have splattered a fair bit over. There would be a lot more mess there. So yeah, that's very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, interesting, but I'm just questioning it a tiny, perhaps.
Yep.
And Bother, can you just pad it for 2 minutes so we can get out to the 2 hours there?
Yeah, I don't think we don't have any problems with that, but it's nice it is nice for a change every now and then to get it under a couple of hours. What do you reckon? Catastrophic. Good on you, Jason. You're always coming up with these pearlers. Always good on you. Got a bloody great sense of humor.
Yeah, and there's another one.
Splatter cat. Yep. Oh, I wish I had hiked our eagles here through West Maria. Had eagles go through coach windscreens and doors, still alive today, and bus floor. Okay. Our Eagles. That's the Eagles, but not a cat. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Good on you. Good on you, Trish. Good on you. Anyway, good on you, Copper. There was a bit there today, and I sort of went a bit longer at the beginning, but it was hopefully that was good for people, and people enjoyed the show again. We're 84 and 85 next week, so people keep coming back. So we're very appreciative of that, given our time and your efforts being put together, putting everything together that you do every week, mate. So love your work, brother. Love your work.
And as I've got in the tag there, thanks very much to James for allowing me to drive his car on some of the stages and for hosting me for a great weekend.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. No, good on you. Good to see. And if those of you obviously on my Rumble channel, South Australian Focus, want to search for that, Treated Like an Outlaw, Dr. Bruce Paix, share that story around. That needs to be seen and heard, considering that the AFP is doing their little bit. So, yeah. Roger. Have a lovely week, everybody. We'll see you next week to do it all again. God bless. God bless Australia.
To fight again for that already burned, he was driven towards the flames. Oh, the signs are there for all to see, the signs we've lost our way. When we jail our heroes and applaud our villains and turn our hearts away, like a silent choir, too scared to sing the anthem of a braver day. A song our children may never hear, the ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix. A song our children may never hear, the ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix.